Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes while we let everybody in, see a few people piling in right now. Do hold on to the end today because we've got a very special treat, one of our giveaways. If you've been on an Assemble You webinar before, do let us know where you're from in the comments section. Say hello, and yeah, let us know where in the country or where in the world you're joining us from. A few bits of housekeeping. There will be a recording, as always. If you're registered, we'll send that out to you at the end. So if you do need to leave halfway through or anything like that, don't worry, we will make sure we get a recording out to you, and that will be out with you this week. We just do a bit of a light edit before we send it out, and then we'll get that out ASAP. Jan saying she's got no sound. Has everyone else got sound? Just to check that before we get in. That might be a local issue, Jan. Just maybe double check your speakers. Cool. Do share thoughts and comments in the chat as we go. Ask any questions. We've got the chat, and then we also have the QA tool as well. Though because it's Teams, only some people have access to the Q&A tool. Some people don't. So maybe just use the chat if you're if you're doing that. Yeah, we're really excited to get stuck into today's session. I think we'll start to get going if that's all right. Cara, a couple of people saying they've got no sound. Maybe just do a bit of troubleshooting there with them locally, but it looks like most people can hear me. And Aaron, you can hear me most importantly, yeah?
I can. Yes, I can hear you, mate.
Great, and I can hear you too. So cool. I think a lot of you on here are familiar with Assemble You. A lot of you have kind of come across our stuff before, so I'll spare you the kind of full introduction to me. But my name is Adam. I'm one of the co-founders of Assemble You. I also host the Learning and Development Challenges podcast, and I host our expert series. And today we welcome one of our experts to this live webinar. So Aaron, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Great. So I'll do a little bio for Aaron, just so you know a bit about him. So Aaron's a former professional kickboxer who spent years learning, improving, and gaining qualifications to switch from the ring to developing businesses in the corporate mental health arena. He was introduced to the importance of mental health in sport after becoming a champion fighter and has developed a unique set of skills and strategies over the last 20 years. He founded OPTIEDGE, the world's first preventative well-being solution. And I'm going to ask him a bit more about that later, actually, because it's really interesting. But it's great to have you with us, Aaron. It's good to be back on the mic with you as well after our recent expert series.
Absolutely. It doesn't even feel that long ago, so it's great to speak again. But yeah, as always, really enjoy it. So
great. Well, we won't keep you guys waiting. We're going to launch straight into it because I know you're hungry to find out more about this. So this is what we're going to cover today. We've got 4 distinct sections. We've got the mental edge, the discipline code, the failure advantage, and mental fitness for life. It's quite a bit to cover. Hopefully got loads of interesting stuff in here, and we're going to keep the questions super simple for this. And so for each one, I'm going to basically ask Aaron to explain the theme and then give us some practical tips, tools, and advice on how we integrate these practices into our daily lives and also support others in doing so as well. So I know we've got a lot of learning and development HR people on the phone on the call here who will be thinking, right, how do I kind of embed these practices within our organization? So we'll touch on a few tips around that as well. Aaron, just to kick us off though, for context, can you just walk us through the term mental fitness and also why you landed on this approach of prevention? So yeah, those 2 things for context, and then we'll launch into each of these sections.
absolutely. And surprisingly, this is a question that doesn't get asked that often. People just assume they know what it is. But to put it simply, mental fitness is more about proactively strengthening your mind before stress, setbacks, or burnout hit. And at the moment in today's world, they're impacting so many people so quickly and so often. Most people tend to think about mental health in a reactive term, so we only really kind of address the issue after we start struggling. But what we've developed around prevention and what we call mental fitness is believing in that kind of prevention first approach. So just like physical fitness. Mental fitness is something that you consistently train. You build resilience, you build clarity, you build emotional strength and emotional intelligence as well. The way that I arrived at, terming it mental fitness instead of mental well-being is that simply it just shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be more about something you're doing consistently and proactively. And then when I think about where I come from, my high performance sports background and coaching and in business leadership and mentoring and later in my future, or sorry, in my past even, and in every kind of area that I work in, I started to see a pattern that people tend to only work on their mindset after they hit burnout or failure or they're insanely stressed as well. So it's something that is, mental fitness and prevention, they just kind of come together. People start treating resilience as something that they're either kind of born with or born without, rather than something that they can build or train. And that's what we try and change and looking at the way it can be done. Um, and just quickly before I move to the second part of your question, mental
Sure.
fitness is really about strengthening your mind before you need it. So, the words that come to mind there for me is, discipline, resilience, emotional intelligence, but also intention and habits as well. There's lots of things that we can be doing that more often than not we don't do. Um, and then when I come to why did we land on prevention, or why is prevention being, the route forward for me with this? Simply reacting to stress, burnout, mental health challenges, whatever it might be, is too late. By the time you've done that, you've already suffering with the problem. And when you think about this in the context of someone as an individual or an employee working for a company, it has a massive impact because the issue has already happened. And then you've got time, energy, money, resources that need to be put in to help that person. Whereas if you're putting that effort and energy beforehand and giving them the tools and practical tips to understand prevention, you're gonna not only build more resilient people, but you're going to, create more sustainable workforces. You're going to create people who enjoy coming to work, and they're going to manage their burnout much better as well. We all face it at times. Stress happens. You can't completely avoid it, but prevention for me, that way, that's the reason why we got there. It's just having the most impact and the most value as possible.
Yeah, and it's probably less, is probably like a lower cost to the company to invest in prevention, to an organization to invest in prevention, than it is to invest in fixing problems after they happen. Because like you say, that cost after somebody hits a wall, burns out, has a major breakdown,
Yeah.
that is a lot higher to the individual and the organization than it is to invest some time and effort in putting the right prevention in place.
Most definitely. I don't have the figures to hand exactly, but I know that roughly for every £1 invested on an employee in prevention, companies tend to see around about £3.50 to £4 per employee in terms of return on investment. So if you're spending £100, you're looking at getting £350 to £400 back in terms of, presenteeism, how optimized they are, the work they're doing, what they're delivering. Whereas if you're looking at responding to something afterwards, when if you've got an employee who needs to use an employee assistance program, only 3 or 4 sessions into a therapy or counseling session, you've already spent that money and you've not really gained that value back to the business. So that's where prevention is really impactful, looking at it from that perspective, definitely.
Very cool. So that's some brilliant context, and I appreciate you talking us through the kind of the why this is so important and kind of where it lives as well. I'm going to stop sharing my screen actually, so that we can just bring Aaron onto the onto the screen more, because we're going to make this more of a fireside chat experience as we like to. Got a few slides to share at the end. As I say, got a really cool freebie for you as well, so do hang on for that. But yeah, let's get into it, Aaron. So our first topic is mental edge, and I like this. By the way, I absolutely love how you kind of describe all these different things as well: discipline code, failure advantage, all this kinds of mental edge. It's really cool. And actually, I think branding is such an important part of this, isn't it? If we're going to get people to buy into it and really understand it and kind of utilize it, then yeah, I think that's an important point as well. So yeah, mental edge. What are we talking about? Explain what we mean, and then let's go into a few tips of how we can support others with these tactics.
Sure. I'll try and keep this as compact as possible, but I could talk about this one all day. So the mental edge is, simply put, it's your ability to stay composed, to think clearly and make high impact decisions no matter what pressure you're facing. In context to the corporate world, because I think that's where most of the audience are today or can relate to, technical skills, intelligence, they tend to get you through the door. But it's always emotional intelligence that determines kind of who thrives under pressure, who the best leaders are, who's the most effective, and who sustains success over a longer period of time. So that's what I call the mental edge, because in high stakes environments, your ability to manage your emotions, manage your energy, and your reactions is what really separates top performers from the rest. I'm sure everyone can recall a situation where someone's reacted emotionally in a moment or in a meeting where they've had a bit of an outburst or something's happened. They are not generally the people who tend to be the best leaders. The best leaders are the ones who stay composed and have that control and that real high level of EQ, which is emotional intelligence. So, because I guess no matter how smart or skilled you are as well, your ability to lead, to perform, and to influence others really does depend on how well you manage your emotions. Your emotions are the start of everything. And that's not just your own as well, that's the emotions of other people around you, and you can manage that as a good leader too. So, interestingly, looking at studies and reports that have been done and released out there, 90% of the top performers in the highest performing businesses have high emotional intelligence, so high EQ, but also higher IQ as well. So you can start to see how EQ, emotional intelligence, is really, really important. And companies with emotionally intelligent leadership tend to be around 20% more profitable as a business as well. So the business becomes more successful because of that as well. And this is a skill that we can all learn and quite often neglect. And then another interesting point is that leaders with high or higher EQ have stronger teams, lower turnover, higher engagement, they're more resilient, more productive, and they're much more optimized as well. So there's so many benefits to having, this really good level of I guess what we say the mental edge, right? So with when you consider what the mental edge is, it's really about leaders who make rational, strategic decisions under pressure. It's about having teams which are resilient, adaptable, and highly engaged. And then it's also a workplace culture that prevents work burnout, but also fuels high performance as well. And the whole idea about it is having leaders and teams who develop this kind of mental edge, because in today's fast moving, high paced corporate world, having a level of mental agility, emotional control, and resilience, they're not just skills. They really do become the greatest competitive advantage a company can have. And it's always that competitive advantage that isn't really trained, it's not really focused on. It's something that few teams might do, some leaders might implement themselves. But when you put real focus and effort around it, you see a massive step change in the business, the performance, your staff turnover, and your profitability as well. um, and then I guess you asked about giving some tips, right? So what we can do. So
Yes, yeah,
I'll jump straight into that as well.
go
So
for it.
the best way to put it is, what can we do better to support others around us and ourselves as well? So from today's audience, likelihood is you look after teams, or you manage learning and development, or you want to find ways to manage yourself better as well. Any of this applies to you. So supporting others or yourself in the workplace, it's not just about offering help when things go wrong. It's really about creating an environment where people don't have to reach breaking point before they feel supported. And I've seen this so many times where it's the opposite. Companies will say they have an employee assistance program. They'll offer all these services. They'll offer mental well-being support, but employees don't engage with it until they need it because it's not set up in the right way. And then that's where it becomes reactive. It's not that preventative element. So I want to give you some practical strategies to really help implement support that you can offer to your colleagues, yourself, your teams, employees in a way that really strengthens mental fitness and the mental edge, and helps to prevent burnout. So the first one is really simple. It's normalizing conversations around mental fitness. We're getting used to having conversations about mental health, but normally when we talk about mental health, it's in the reactive sense. If we reframe them conversations to mental fitness and being proactive and preventative, it becomes so much more impactful. So the reason why is that most employees don't generally speak up about stress or burnout until it's too late. They'll suffer in silence, or they won't put their hand up and say they need help through fear of, being ostracized, through having their ego damaged, through fear of having some sort of comeback on them. We really need to change that and make conversations about mental resilience, stress, workload and balance completely normal and not reactive. So to do that, what can you do? If you're sitting here listening to this thinking that's great and wonderful, but what can I actually do? You can start to lead by example. So if you find yourself struggling with workload, with stress, You can start to actually talk about how you're managing it. What are the things you put in place? What are the actionable steps you use to manage your own workload that maybe someone else could find beneficial? Show others that your mental fitness is a daily practice and it's not a sign of weakness. It's something that is there to consistently build, as if you're going to the gym to build muscle or to improve your fitness. Um, Another one, something else you can do as well with that is what I call check in, don't check out. So instead of asking someone, are you okay, or how you doing, that always leads to the generic answer of I'm fine or I'm good. Change it. Change the language that you use, and you'll find it's much more impactful. So a couple of examples that I like to give people is, instead of saying, hey, how are you? Once you get into a conversation, you can actually start asking, what's been your biggest challenge this week? Or how's your energy level been recently? Or maybe even, what's the one thing that will make your work feel more manageable? And these don't have to be because you think they're struggling. It just can be offering that proactive level of support as well. And encouraging proactive well-being is really a way of not just saying, don't reach out if you need help. Instead, actively offer regular check-ins yourself, informally, formally, however you want to do it. The second strategy that you can use is about helping people to build mental fitness, not just manage stress. This is a really common thing that you see happen when you start talking about these topics and subjects, is people will put stress management tactics or strategies in place, but not really managing it in the right way. So when we only talk about stress management, we start focusing on reactive elements rather than preventing burnout in the first place. So to improve that, you can start to really promote mental fitness habits as part of daily work. So you can, simple things, really simple, easy things that can be done. And I like to keep it simple because it makes it easier to action. Is encourage what the simple thing I call is mindset resets. Before a big meeting, before a big call, before a presentation, try and take 1 or 2 minutes to just pause and clear your thoughts. Maybe do some breath work, maybe think about strategy, think about things. You can actually even do some visualization as well about how you want the meeting or presentation to go, what you want to say. You can mentally rehearse it. And the interesting thing there's studies that have been shown that your brain does not know the difference between imagination and reality when you get into deep visualization. So if you get really good at visualizing something, essentially you're just rehearsing it over and over again. And the more you rehearse something, the better it becomes. So if you can take that time to pause and have that mindset reset and refocus yourself, it can be really impactful. The next one you can do as well for promoting fitness, mental fitness habits, is you can start meetings with a mental check-in with people. If it's a smaller group, maybe you could start with, on a scale of 1 to 10, where's your focus and energy at today? And there's actually a company that's called 1 to 10, and they have this very similar scale. And it's literally a bunch of questions, and you answer it on a scale of 1 to 10, rather than just getting into generic conversations. It's on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your energy? On a scale of 1 to 10, how's your mood? How's your stress? You can ask loads and loads of questions. And people often answer more honestly with a number than what they would do with words. And it's a really easy way to break down barriers. And then another one that I'll offer here as well is about encouraging micro breaks. So quite often people get into the habit, especially in today's work from home culture, of just powering through. Try and make sure that you plan time and even put it in your calendar so you're not getting notifications, calls, meeting requests, whatever it is, to take 5, 10, 15-minute mental resets and breaks throughout the day. Micro breaks can be really, really impactful, but they have to be intentional. We all probably do something similar at the minute, but we might pick up our phone, start scrolling social media, and that's not really giving you that mental reset. Try and actually take some intentional time to just relax, think, do some breath work, listen to some meditation, music, visualize, whatever. There's tons of things you can do. And then the last one that I really want to add, because I think it's a really important one before we move to more questions. Sorry if I'm taking ages, but I think this is really important.
It's a good one. Go ahead.
Is about taking action. So often we'll hear people talk about things, but very little do we see people really take action on, and when it comes to mental health, mental fitness, and well-being overall. So be the one who leads change is what I say to people, because mental fitness isn't just built in isolation. A mentally fit workplace really starts with small actions that create lasting but sustainable change as well. So some action steps maybe that some of you can take away today is commit to one small change, whether that's checking in with your team differently, using the 0 to 10 scale, asking like the question differently, how's your energy today? How's your mood today? You can maybe even model better mental fitness habits yourself, and then look at normalizing mental fitness conversations as well. Second thing you can do, another step you can take away, is ask yourself, how can I make it easier for people around me to thrive? What can you do to enable others? And that can be one of the most impactful things, because if you're the person taking action to enable others, you're helping people beyond anything that you would ever comprehend. And when I like to use this one because humans is basically, we have around about six basic needs, right? And one of the most impactful and powerful ones that's been shown is contribution. If you can be contributing to something, you'll feel more fulfilled, more happy, and more driven in anything that you're doing in life, whether that's work or personal as well. And then remember, I think the best workplaces don't wait for burnout to happen. They definitely build resilience from the start and they make it part of the culture. So everything that I've mentioned there is really kind of how you can start to build and shape a culture as well. Hopefully that gives a whole bunch of value for people from there.
Loads of good tips in there, Aaron. Yeah, really, really good ones. And again, nothing too complicated or taxing, but things
Yeah.
that actually kind of reframe, um, I guess something that can be viewed quite negatively sometimes, anxiety breakdowns, all this kind of, stress, but actually instead flips it around to something, right? Let's proactively address these before they become an issue. Few observations there. I really like how you kind of position high performance teams, and actually the big thing there is emotional regulation. And I guess that transfers very well into, the stuff that you used to do when you were an athlete.
Yeah.
At that very kind of very, very stressful moment, the people that can regulate and actually think clearly, that is a really difficult skill, actually. And all the things you've suggested how kind of contribute to that. Normalizing conversations, love that. Leading by example, I'm a big fan of that. And actually showing some vulnerability, I think, as well as a leader, talking about your own experiences there. Make ask better questions. That's such a good tip. Instead of like, how are you, everyone says fine. Ask a question that will actually lead to a more kind of a more revealing answer. That's really really interesting. Take micro breaks, take action. Yeah, tons and tons of things in there. Big fan of all of those. And I think a lot of these tips could have a really important impact, if you, as learning and development people on this call, if we're putting them into leadership training and putting them into the kind of training that can have an impact that then kind of spreads out across the organization. So if we're training leaders on how to have better conversations, if we're training leaders on how to encourage a mindset reset, and training leaders on making people take micro breaks and how to do a good micro break, and the kind of check-ins at the beginning of meetings that you're talking about, that can very quickly cascade out over an organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Leading from the top, leading by example is a really key one, definitely.
Great. Well, let's crack on. Sorry, I got excited about my observations there. Right, the discipline code is our next one. Unlocking the secret to unstoppable mental strength, I think you put in the teaser
Absolutely.
for this. So talk to us about this one, Aaron. What do we mean?
I definitely like my titles, don't I? So, the discipline code is really, it's the key to having long-term success and sustainable over a long period of time. Not motivation, not talent, but disciplined action repeated consistently. So most people think of discipline as something rigid or something restrictive, but I view discipline as the ultimate freedom. Because when you've got real control over your actions, your thoughts, and your habits, you're no longer at the mercy of stress, distraction, and even burnout as well. And the reason that so many professionals struggle with performance and well-being isn't down to lack of knowledge or lack of capability or skill or talent. It's down to a lack of having a structured system to sustain mental fitness over time. So that's where the discipline code really comes in. And actually, I've created a little formula which might help. So the easy way I put this to people, and I'm going to share some stuff afterwards to everyone's email so you can see this visually to make it more easier to understand. But simply, the equation for the discipline code is clarity plus consistency minus emotion equals mental strength. So to break that down a little bit, for clarity, you need to have a clear reason for your actions. Whether that's purpose driven discipline, for example. If you know why you're doing something, you'll stick to it. If you don't know why you're doing something, normally you end up stopping. Consistency are small daily actions creating compounding results over time. So discipline isn't about taking huge leaps. It's about mastering the small stuff. People say don't sweat the small stuff, but actually I like to switch it, because if you sweat the small stuff and focus on that consistently, it builds a bigger impact and a bigger picture over time, and you start to create these, mastering these small repeatable habits. And then emotion, as part of the equation, so emotion control, I'll call it, is the biggest reason that people fail at discipline. They really let their emotions dictate their actions. Instead, mentally strong people will take action regardless of how they feel. So, to give an example, a high performing leader doesn't wait until they feel motivated to make a tough decision. They rely on their predefined values and systems and what they really believe in to take action despite uncertainty. If you're waiting to feel motivated to do things, 9 times out of 10, you'll never get it done, because motivation is an external driver. It's driven by an external result or a goal. Um, why why is discipline the key to mental strength, though? I'll just touch on this real quickly as well. So it really removes decision fatigue. And if you're not sure what decision fatigue is, it's simply every day, most of us on average are faced with around about 65,000 choices we have to make a day, consciously and subconsciously. And it's some stuff that you do regardless. But almost everything you do is a choice and it's a decision. If you're adding more to that, you end up with what's called decision fatigue. But if you can remove decision fatigue and build mental resilience by creating structured habits in the chaos, you'll become much more impactful. So without discipline, you really start to react to stress instead of preparing for it. And you'll also, without discipline, burnout will really start to sneak up on you, because you have no systems in place to protect your own energy. And then without discipline, your emotions take over, leading to inconsistency, self-sabotage as well. Um, I guess as well, to give some actionable tips as well, I'll jump to that because I know I like to talk too much. Um, there's a few different things you can do, and they're very similar. And again, I keep it very simple, because the key to mental fitness is not motivation. It's about disciplined action consistently applied. So to give some practical tips, which are really easy to implement that you can start doing today, the first one is what I call the 2 minute rule. And it's about lowering the barrier to action. And why is it important? Most people fail at discipline because they set goals that feel too overwhelming. The key is to make starting so easy that you can't say no. So, the way I like to do this and really break this down to people is that when you think about going for a run, the one thing you tend to think about is how far you got to go. If you switch the thought process to just the next thing you got to do, I've got to get out of bed. I've got to go down the stairs. I've got to put my shoes on. Once you've got your shoes on, you're 90% of the way there. Then you got to get out the door. Once you're out the door, you're definitely going for that run. So if you break it down into them small actions, thinking about that rather than how far you got to go, it's much easier to remain disciplined. So when a task feels overwhelming, take just 2 minutes. And within those 2 minutes, let's say if you wanted to build focus, start with 2 minutes of deep work before checking your phone and scrolling on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it might be. You want to go to the gym and work out? Do 2 minutes of movement. Likelihood is once you start doing 2 minutes of exercise, you'll probably continue, because it starts to make you feel good. It releases endorphins and everything else that makes you feel better. And then the hardest part of the hardest part is simply starting. Once you're actually in motion, momentum really starts to take over. And then the second tip to give is set when then triggers, and when then. So you can really start to automate your discipline. So why is this one important? Most people fail to stick to habits because they rely on willpower instead of systems. Systems are much more powerful when you have the strategy in place. So the key is to pair new habits with existing actions. So how can you apply this and what could it mean to you? Create a really simple when then habit rule. So for example, when I make my morning coffee, then I'll commit to a 2 minute mental reset. When I enter a stressful meeting, then I'll take one deep breath before responding, giving you that mental space. When I finish my workday, then I will write down my top 3 priorities for tomorrow. So it's about when you do something, take an action to do something else, and you start to connect to habits and disciplines, which makes it much easier and it lowers that barrier to entry. And then the third tip that I'll give, the last one, is remove emotion from decisions, focusing on systems, not feelings. So emotion-driven decisions lead to inconsistency. Mentally strong people will always have a system over feelings approach. So easy way to put this, and you might have heard this term before, is create non-negotiables. And that's removing the decision factor. So instead of asking yourself, do I feel like working out? Just schedule it, put it in your calendar, arrange it, book that class, just go and do it. Instead of reacting emotionally to stress, use a structured response. Pause, take a breath, ask yourself, what is in my control? And then take action based on logic, not on stress and emotion. Discipline really means that you will act whether you feel like it or not. And I think Mike Tyson says something very similar, that discipline is about doing the things you hate like you love it. And that for me is always really powerful, coming from a fight background, especially because getting out of bed to go training and to get punched in the face when I was younger was never exciting, and I was never motivated to do it. I was purely disciplined to do it because I put the systems in place that made me better at what I did and led to me winning, titles and all sorts of stuff. So I think those are three really good tips. I could carry on, but I'll give you those three.
Absolutely brilliant tips. Yes. Discipline removes decision fatigue. And yeah, really good tip. So 2-minute rule, do the next thing for 2 minutes. And the hardest part is often starting. Second tip was your when then trigger, which I really like, this idea of hooking a new habit onto an existing habit or an existing action that you do all the time. Pairing them, if you like, with pairing them
Exactly.
together to make sure that they happen. And then, yeah, removing emotion, focus on systems, not feelings. And a great way of doing that is creating non-negotiables. I like that as well. We put that in some of our lessons, actually, just around having a rule in place. I don't do this because of this, and you can have a good reason. You don't have to be rude about it, especially when you're dealing with other people. It could be like, I don't do this because of this, but I can do this. Likewise, your example of going to the gym. I have a rule that I go to the gym every Wednesday at this time. That's my rule, and I can't break it for whatever reason. So yeah, I like that a lot. Cool.
Awesome.
So
I'm glad you got the benefit at least.
I did. Now I've just got to start doing it, Aaron. Yeah.
That's it.
That's the
Take that action.
yeah, take that action big time. Right, let's turn to failure, because this is
Mm,
always an interesting one. And I love how you've positioned failure here. The failure advantage, bit of a juxtaposition, if you like, between those two words. So let's talk about how we can turn setbacks into superpowers. So can you explain what we mean, and then let's have some more tips, because I'm really enjoying the tips.
sure, no worries. So this is a topic again I could probably talk about for the rest of the day. Um, Failure it's not the opposite of success. It really is the raw material for it. You need failure to create success. So most people will fear failure, and especially in the corporate world, failure is often seen as a career risk or a reputation killer or something just to avoid at all costs. But in honesty, it really is completely different to that. Most successful leaders, innovators, high performers, they won't just find failure and force it, but they'll also recover from failure, and they really use it as their competitive advantage. So the failure advantage is about the mindset shift that allows you to turn setbacks into growth, into resilience, and future success. A failure now doesn't mean that you won't be successful in the future. A failure now means you've had the opportunity to learn, adjust, and readapt and to go again. Whereas most people will see failure and they'll stop and they'll see that as their barrier. So, why do some people thrive after failure while others completely collapse? And it's a really common question I get asked. And I guess the best way to put it is that resilient individuals and organizations, they don't fear failure. They learn how to leverage it. And here's actually what typically happens when people face setbacks, right? So if you have a reactive mindset, most people, these are what the kind of things you'll hear people say. It'll be, this is proof that I'm not good enough. I need to avoid risk so I don't fail again. Or the biggest one, people will judge me for this. Whereas if you adjust the mindset to the failure advantage mindset and this way of thinking about failure and using it as an advantage, the things that you hear people say is, what lessons can I take from this? Like, what can I learn from this? What are the adjustments I can make to improve for next time? Or even, how can I turn this into an opportunity? Because failure actually normally presents an opportunity. It's like I say, it's room for learning and for growth and to do something different. The difference is completely in how you respond. So the best leaders, the best entrepreneurs, the best high performers, they will see every failure as feedback. And they know that failure isn't personal. Simply put, it's data. It's an opportunity to learn, right? So I want to give a 3-step framework about how you can really look at failures and reapply them as well. It's kind of a simple strategy, right? So the first one is reframe failure and using it as, from a setback to a strategy. Your brain really interprets failure as a threat unless you train it to see failure as a stepping stone or an opportunity to learn and to change. So the way you can apply this yourself is ask yourself, what did this failure reveal that I didn't see before? And instead of focusing on what went wrong, shift yourself to what could I adjust for next time? Because high performing teams conduct post-mortems on failures. Sometimes you hear it lessons learned, but I don't think many people apply the lessons learned methodology in the right way. It's simply, most of the time, it's about assigning blame, but actually you need to use it for extracting lessons and looking at what you can do differently. So when you extract the lessons, you need to apply it immediately. So this is step 2 of the framework. The faster you apply the lesson, the less likely you are to repeat the failure. You can break any failure normally down into 3 components. Firstly, what was the root cause? What was the reasons? What was the strategy? Was it execution? Was it timing? Second, what was the key takeaway? What needs to change? What went wrong? And then the last part of the components you can break it down to is, what's the next action? What's the next step? How can I test a better approach? What can we do differently and how can we implement it? Best way to put it is the best leaders teach their teams, fail fast, but adjust faster. And that's something I love to live by. It's about finding the failures, forcing failure is something I call it. And then as part of the overall framework, the third part of it is build failure resilience. So train yourself to handle setbacks without breaking down. Because it's really easy to break down when you experience failure. It's really easy to feel disheartened, feel disillusioned, to feel like you're not going to achieve something. But if a failure breaks you down every time, you're going to stop taking risks. And if you stop taking risks, you stop growing. And ultimately, humans psychologically, we're at our happiest when we're learning, we're growing, and we're developing. So if you stop that, you're inherently making yourself unhappy. It's a bit of a double-edged sword. You almost need to fail to learn to continue to grow, to actually be happy and get fulfillment from life as well. So how can you apply that? Is you can normalize failure. Instead of seeing it personal, view it as data collection. You can make failure part of a company culture or part of your own personal brand or culture if you're just working for yourself, by encouraging learning reviews. Look at where teams might have analyzed missteps, learn to adjust, look at when you went wrong, what can you do differently, how can you change the approach? And then the last one is detach your, and actually it's a really important one, detach your identity from failure. If you failed at something, you failed at the task. You're not the failure. It's just you failed at that task. You can do something different. Um, I think there's a really easy way as well that I can to help to break this down. So you talk about some practical steps as well. I think we talked about obviously about reframing and giving some frameworks and tools and everything that we covered there as well. But there's actually a really simple framework for a takeaway that I want to give you. This is like a bonus one, and it's a really easy one to remember. It's just called FAIL, FAIL. So the F is frame it, rewire how you see the situation and the failure. The A is analyze it, extract the lesson, apply the lesson, do it quickly. I is implement, take action immediately. And then L is about leveraging it, build the resilience to keep moving forward and how you can leverage it and understand what can be better moving forward. So I think those Again, this is a topic I could talk about all day. I'm so passionate about failure. I coach people on failure all the time and encouraging failure. And you're coming from a fighting background as well. You're going to fail, you're going to lose. Someone's always going to beat you at some stage. So it's really built into my DNA. And it's something I really like to help people to understand and to change their mindset on. But I'll leave it there for a minute because otherwise I'll talk for the next 30 minutes on this one.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Frame, analyze, implement, leverage. I love that.
Yeah.
There's some great stats from sport, isn't there, around from Michael Jordan, from Roger Federer, when they talk
Yep.
about how many
Shots they've
shots missed and how many points he lost. It's something like 46% or something stupid of
Yeah.
like professional points he actually lost, and he only won like 54. Yet he's considered one of the greatest champions of all time. And so it's really fascinating when you look at it in that kind of mindset as well. But I liked a lot of that, Aaron. I think that's really interesting. I think psychological safety plays a massive part here, isn't it? And I think some of your tips can actually help create that environment of psychological safety, which I guess a few people on the call, if they're in a workplace that is maybe a little bit more toxic and doesn't have that kind of safe feeling, then maybe these are some tips they can bring back to it to help with that. But yeah, obviously that's a tricky one to navigate as well, isn't it? Because you want to make sure, you want to say it's safe to fail, but then everyone's got to be on board with that in order for that to actually be a reality.
I did consider adding psychological safety in as part of one of the frameworks, but it's a big topic. But it's definitely something that has to be built into company culture, and it's super important.
Yeah, we'll have to do another session on that one. Right, let's finish off with mental fitness for life. So habits to strengthen our minds and prevent burnout. Yeah, we can do a quick 5 minutes on this, and then we'll dive into some of our freebies at the end. And I want to make sure Aaron's able to tell us a little bit about OPTIEDGE and the work he's doing there.
Sure, I'll try and keep it to 5 minutes, but this is another good one. And again, too passionate. I can talk all day on these topics. Right, so mental fitness for life, essentially. This is kind of bringing everything together, but I'll try and give you some different tips and context as well. So mental fitness isn't something that you work on only when things go wrong. It's something that you really need to start training daily and build long-term resilience, clarity, and overall well-being. We tend not to focus on prevention, but when you do focus on prevention rather than reaction, just like your physical fitness, it keeps your body strong. So just like physical fitness keeps your body strong, mental fitness keeps your mind sharp and also keeps you stress resistant. Doesn't mean you're going to be stress proof. You're going to be stress resistant. You can have a higher level of tolerance towards it. So in the world today, and especially in corporate world, stress and burnout and decision fatigue are at a complete all-time high. And the biggest mistake that people tend to make is they wait until they're overwhelmed to start prioritizing their mental well-being. And unfortunately, company culture kind of encourages that as well. When I look at traditional employee assistance programs and services that are out there, they're all reactive and they're all just waiting for someone to have a problem, which is, in my mind, the completely wrong approach, which is why prevention is the thing that I talk about so much. When mental fitness is, it really is about training your mind proactively. So you're not just surviving stress, you're thriving in high pressure environments as well, without hitting that burnout maybe as quickly as you might have done before. I'm not going to guarantee you won't because everyone has their limits, but you can increase your tolerance. So why is mental fitness essential for long-term success? I think the best way that I want to put this one is that most professionals train for productivity, not for sustainability. Most of us tend to operate on short-term energy bursts, relying on caffeine, late nights, last-minute pressure to get things done. And this is something I did a lot throughout my degrees and university. I'd always wait until the last minute to do it myself because I needed that pressure to perform. And that's fine if you do, but you can't sustain that over a longer period of time, especially in a career. But here's actually, the reality of it. High performance isn't just about working harder, it's about working smarter, managing your energy effectively, and maintaining long-term focus as well. Without mental fitness, you'll find that burnout creeps in, decision fatigue will take over, motivation will drop, and also your emotional resilience will begin to weaken as well. Whereas when you have good mental fitness, you build emotional resilience. Your brain functions at peak efficiency. Burnout does become preventable, not completely, but you can prevent it for longer periods of time. And you'll also stay in control of your stress and manage your emotions better as well, which, as we've talked about a number of times, is absolutely key for high performance. So I want you to maybe think about this as a shift from, maybe from mental recovery to mental training as well, even. Most professionals will treat mental health like damage control. As I kind of mentioned, it's completely reactive. They'll only focus on it when they feel exhausted or they feel overwhelmed or anxious, because we're so busy and we tend to just put it to the side. If we're okay, why do I need to worry about it now? But health is wealth. Like, I've seen this so many times, and I'll share this. In the last 2 weeks, I've gone through a very personal event where I lost my mum within a week's time at the age of 64, because her health disappeared, and she passed away very rapidly. So your health is absolutely everything. If you want to put it off until you need help, you're going to suffer later on in life. At some point, it's going to come back and it's going to impact you. So mental fitness really flips that way of thinking. Instead of asking, how do I recover from stress? You should really be asking yourself, how do I prevent stress from accumulating or building in the first place? And that shift in mindset really allows top performers to sustain levels of success without sacrificing their well-being. And don't get me wrong, stress will come, life events happen, you're going to face death, you're going to face, issues in relationships, you're going to have children, babies, whatever. It all brings stress. But if you are preventative and have the strategies to help you manage it, it's not about avoiding it, it's about understanding how you can tolerate more, or you can create a strategy to help you be in a more preventative space. So what I focus on doing with people is breaking this down into daily mental fitness habits that strengthen focus, emotion regulation, and resilience as well, amongst other things. But when these are practiced consistently, these habits don't just prevent burnout, they really help professionals to thrive under pressure. And I keep talking about thriving rather than surviving. And quite often, all of us are just hanging on by our fingertips or clutching at straws, trying to survive. Whereas actually, the environment we're in should be about being, thriving more than anything else. So I know I'm talking for a minute, but I want to give just a real framework behind this as well. And as this is mental fitness, and as is all about your mind, to make this really simple, I'm going to call this framework mind, MIND. So to build mental fitness for life, you really need daily habits which strengthen your focus, resilience, and emotional stability before stress or pressure or burnout can take hold, right? So mind is a simple, actionable system and framework that enables mental fitness to become that daily practice, just like your physical fitness. So I think if I start with M, so this is about a mental reset. Try and start your day with clarity, not chaos. The first 30 minutes of your day really do set the tone and for what your mindset or where your thinking will be throughout the day, your focus, your energy, everything. If you wake up and you're immediately checking your email, social media, work notifications, you're really starting the day in a reactive way, and it's not an intentional way of starting your day. If you can, try to have no screens for the first 5 to 30 minutes of the day. Protect the mental space before the external noise really takes over. And I know how difficult this is. I can be really bad for it. I can check my emails in the first few minutes of waking up sometimes. But I find that the days that I do it really impacts the way I think and my mindset through the day as well. And with that, you can ask yourself one powerful question. What is my number one priority today? That will really focus your brain before distractions kick in. So before you pick up your phone, maybe grab a pen and pad and write that down. What's my number one priority for the day? And focus on achieving that throughout the day. And then you can do one quick mental fitness practice, which like to give people as well, is 2 minutes of deep intentional breathing, writing down three things that you're grateful for, and even stretching or taking a short walk to clear your mind before the workday starts can be really impactful. And then I'm going to try and go through these quickly because I know the time is getting on, is about being intentional. So setting intentional recovery breaks, managing your energy, not just your time. You can apply that by using what I call a 50-10 rule. So with every 50 minutes of focused work you do, try and take a 10-minute break or reset. Step away from your screen, get up, walk, take a walk, stretch, grab a drink, breathe, reset, whatever it is you need to do. Something else you can do as well is protect your no distraction zones. Block off times in your calendar for deep work periods. Use, do not disturb notification settings. Get rid of them, change them. Really protect that space. It's really important, but no one does it. And then mental check-ins at midday is another good one as well. Around about halfway through the day, lunchtime-ish, ask yourself, where's my energy at right now? If it's low, try and take a 2-minute mental reset before moving forwards. There's all these little things you can do. And then N, as part of the mind framework, is a nightly mental unplug. Really start to close your day with intention. And this is becoming much more popular recently. And I really like this one because your brain needs a clear shutdown routine to protect your circadian rhythm. And most professionals really stay in work mode late into the evening, working on their laptops, replying to emails, looking at their phone, maybe even looking at social media. And it really impacts and leads to poor sleep, decision fatigue, and even chronic stress as well. So you can apply this by using a simple rule called 3-2-1. 3 hours before bed, no big meals, no caffeine. 2 hours before bed, no heavy work, emails, no problem solving, no business calls, no decision making really at that point. 1 hour before bed, no screens, no news, no emails, no social media. And then if you can add to that as well, journaling your wins for the day, write down maybe 1 or 2, 3 things max of what you accomplished throughout the day. No matter how small, it really helps to focus your brain on progress and success rather than failure and stress. And then D, the last part, is daily mental fitness micro workouts. So daily workouts essentially, strengthening resilience in real time for your body and your mind as well. So mental resilience is built in small moments throughout the day. It's not by doing big things. We talked about small actions that you can take throughout the day and doing it throughout the day, not just in a crisis or when you're reactive. Likelihood is it won't work at that point. So be proactive. Training your brain to handle stress before it escalates prevents burnout, but it also sharpens your decision makings. So we talked about the 3-2-1 reset for stressful moments. You can actually use a similar thing here as well. So I'll give you another 3-2-1. You can take 3 deep breaths to help reset your nervous system. You can then reframe and ask yourself 2 questions. What's in my control and what's my best at next action? And then take 1 immediate intentional action. Even if it's small, it helps you regain momentum in whatever the task is. You can apply this to big problems or small problems or everyday things. So I think those are some really simple things. But just to summarize, you got a morning mental reset, intentional recovery breaks, a nightly mental unplug, and daily mental fitness workouts. And that's what makes up Mind. And I think that's a really nice way to end this, hopefully.
Brilliant. So yeah, mind. Keep that in mind as you go away from this.
Absolutely.
Hopefully everyone can see my screen. We've got a few minutes left, and Aaron, I want you to just share what you do at OPTIEDGE a little bit with us, and then I'm going to dive in and talk about our freebie that we've got
Sure.
for everybody.
I'll keep this really short.
Well.
Yeah, I'll keep this short and quick and concise. Essentially, we've created the world's first preventative employee well-being solution. So at the minute, as I've talked about, it's all reactive, where we've developed education providing 5 pillars, which you'll see on the next screen in a minute. But it's a 5-pillar model. We have AI-powered stuff in it as well. So we look at mental fitness, emotional fitness, financial fitness, leadership fitness, and physical fitness. And all of that comes in with on-demand learning, app access, all these different things, tips, kind of things that I've talked about today, going into way more detail and way more interesting things as well. And then supported by AI as well, which, because AI is the big thing these days, but it's all about how we can really shape and change the way that the workplace views mental health and well-being. And like I say, we've created this world-first platform to do that, and it's been really impactful, and it's changing thousands of people's lives at the minute, hopefully millions in the next couple of years.
Fantastic. And if people want to have a look at that, access it, get in touch with you, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share my email address, which I think is on. You've got it on a slide
We've
anyway.
got it on it. We've got it on the later slide. Yeah, exactly. So we'll put that up in a sec. And so I mentioned earlier an expert series that we've been working on with Aaron. If you're an Assemble You customer, you probably have access to it already. We released it a few weeks ago. But in the expert series, we've got 5 sessions covering these different topics. So the 4 pillars of emotional resilience, your 3-step framework for emotional intelligence, the 4 C's of mental toughness, the 5-step framework for mental clarity, the 5-step daily routine for a balanced life. And some of the stuff we've talked about today features in it, but each of these sessions is actually 30 to 40 minutes long, each one. So Aaron is let loose at the mic and able to go into loads more detail. Tons of really valuable tips, practical examples, and actually stories as well, Aaron. We've got quite a few stories from clients
Yep.
you've worked with and things like that in there, which I really liked, because I think it's really interesting to hear about people's kind of transformational journeys and stuff like that. So yeah, as usual, if you're familiar with Assemble U products, they are an audio lesson. So this is what they look like. This is actually a SCORM file on the left here, dropped straight into a learning management system. This is what they look like on a phone. Each of the lessons is 30 to 4 minutes long. They are structured. They come with these fantastic looking detailed summative key point infographics, as well as short tests and obviously reflection points as well. So we want to, all the stuff, this great stuff you've been listening to, we have additional resources in there to help take that from just kind of knowledge absorption into actually, how do I apply this to my life, to my work practice, to my team, all that kind of stuff as well. So that's what we're trying to do with this series. And our freebie today is that you can get access to it. So I think it's open for the next 3 weeks. If you scan that QR code, or Cara has just dropped the link into the chat, that will actually get you straight to the content, so you can have a listen to that. It is just a preview link. It's not going to record how far you've got through it. One of the images might look a little bit fuzzy because it's a preview link, just FYI. But yeah, the content's all in there. It sounds brilliant, and yeah, hope you enjoy that. And so thank you for being with us today. And Aaron's details on the right hand side there. If you find him on LinkedIn, it's Aaron at OPTIEDGE.co to find out more about that brilliant program that he has going on. Do email him. My details above there, so you can find out more about us at assembleu.com, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well if we're not already connected. Aaron, thank you so much. I feel like that was, my mind is expanding kind of all these brilliant tips, as it was each time we recorded one of these, actually. So much good kind of practical, interesting things that we can apply to our daily life. And just this whole idea of switching the narrative from being reactive around mental health to being proactive. And I think the one line, if I can pick out one line, because you probably had about 20 quotable lines, I feel like we could create a sticker book of like all these awesome lines you had. But people train for productivity, not sustainability, was one of the last ones that I picked on. And I really like that, because that is so true. Aren't we always just talking about productivity? And actually what we really want and what we all need is sustainability. So brilliant stuff. Yeah, Aaron, anything to add before we sign off?
I'm glad your mind's expanding and not exploding, because there's a lot there. So no, but other than that, just really appreciate giving me the time and space to come and talk, and for all of everyone who came and listened as well. It's so amazing, and some of the comments seeing as well, got them on the side here, absolutely awesome. Really love it. So thank you.
And sorry, we kind of ran out of time for questions. If there are any burning questions that you do have, feel free to drop Aaron an email directly. Feel free to email me or message me on LinkedIn as well. Though Aaron's probably the one that you want to message. Yeah, feel free to drop him a message if there's anything you wanted clarifying. But yeah, we hope you enjoyed that, and we'll be back soon with another Assemble U webinar. Aaron, awesome to have you on today. Thanks so much for your time, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.